Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Horizon and watched the stars beyond Earth's solar system. 50 years had passed since humanity last traveled to those distant suns. The ship moved slowly around the outer edge of their home system like a guard dog protecting its territory. Jake was 35 years old and had never seen an alien face except in old pictures and videos. "Captain, we're getting another signal from outside the border," said Lieutenant Lisa Kane from her station. She was young and eager, with bright eyes that held no memory of the old wars. Her fingers moved across the control panel as she tried to clean up the message. "It's the same as yesterday." "Someone out there wants to talk to us." Jake nodded but said nothing. They got these messages every few months. Always the same desperate voices calling from beyond the invisible wall that separated humanity from the rest of the galaxy. Most of the time, Admiral Kate Sullivan back on Earth told them to ignore the calls. Sometimes she let them listen, but never to respond. Chief Engineer Ben Carter walked onto the bridge with oil stains on his uniform. He was older than the others, with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too much. "The engines are running smooth, Captain. But I still think we should be heading deeper into space instead of playing watchdog out here." "You know why we can't do that, Ben," Jake replied quietly. The older man just grunted and went back to his work. Ben remembered the time before the Great Withdrawal when human ships sailed between the stars like kings of the universe. Those days were gone now. Lisa managed to clear up the signal and the voice became stronger. It spoke in broken English with an accent that sounded like music. "Please, humans of Earth, this is Prince Zefkov of the Kethran Empire. Our worlds are dying. The machines consume everything in their path. Only you have the power to stop them. Please remember our friendship from the old days." The message repeated over and over. Jake had heard similar calls before. The galaxy was apparently falling apart without humanity there to fix its problems. But that was exactly why they had left in the first place. They had fixed too many problems with too much violence. "Should I record this for the Admiral?" Lisa asked. "Yes, but don't send a response," Jake said. He turned away from the screen and looked out at the empty space between the planets. Somewhere out there, beyond the edge of their system, alien civilizations were fighting and dying. Once upon a time, humans would have rushed in to help or to conquer. Now they just listened and did nothing. Back on Earth, Admiral Kate Sullivan sat in her office reading reports from the Border Patrol ships. The walls were covered with old maps of human space that stretched across half the galaxy. Red lines marked the places where humanity had fought its wars. Black marks showed the worlds they had destroyed. It was a reminder of why they had chosen isolation. Senator Paul Davis knocked on her door and entered without waiting for permission. He was a thin man with angry eyes who led the political party that wanted humanity to stay hidden forever. "Another message from the aliens, I suppose," he said as he sat down. "How many this week?" 17, Kate replied. "All asking for help against something called the Void Swarm. They say it's consuming entire star systems." Paul laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Let them handle their own problems. We tried to help the galaxy before and look what happened. Billions dead and every species in space terrified of us. We're better off staying here where we can't hurt anyone." Kate nodded, but she wasn't sure she agreed. Dr. Nina Ross had been arguing that humanity had a duty to help, especially if entire civilizations were being destroyed. Nina led the group that wanted to end the isolation and rejoin galactic society. The debate between the two sides had been going on for 50 years. On Luna Base, Lieutenant Lisa Kane was spending her off-duty time in the archives. She had access to old military records that most people never saw. The videos showed human ships in battle against alien fleets. She watched in amazement as 12 human destroyers defeated 3,000 enemy vessels at a place called Kepler Station. The human commander was a man named Ryan Hayes who moved his ships like pieces on a chessboard. "How is this possible?" she whispered to herself. The alien ships were huge and powerful, but the human vessels danced around them like fighters battling giants. Every move was perfect. Every shot found its target. The aliens fired back, but their weapons seemed to pass right. Through the human ships as if they weren't really there, the video changed to show ground combat on a planet with purple skies. Human soldiers in power armor fought creatures that looked like walking trees. The aliens were twice as tall as the humans and had weapons that could melt metal, but they moved too slowly. The human soldiers were like ghosts, appearing and disappearing so fast that the aliens couldn't aim at them. Lisa found another file labeled Genesis Protocol and opened it. The screen showed a human ship approaching a planet covered in red clouds. The narrator explained that the world had been infected with a synthetic plague that turned living beings into machines. If it spread, it would consume the entire galaxy. Commander Hayes made the decision to deploy Genesis bombs that would sterilize the planet completely. She watched 7 worlds die in fire. Billions of lives ended in seconds. The plague was stopped, but the cost was unimaginable. Lisa began to understand why the galaxy feared humanity. They had the power to end entire civilizations, and they had used it without hesitation. A warning signal brought her back to the present. The border sensors had detected something approaching from outside the system. Lisa ran to the communications station and opened a channel to the approaching object. What she saw made her heart stop. A Kethran ship was tumbling through space, its hull torn open and sparking with electrical fires. The vessel was barely holding together as it crossed into human territory for the first time in 50 years. Lisa could see movement inside the ship, but just barely. She opened a rescue channel. Unknown vessel, this is Luna Base. You have entered restricted space. Identify yourself and state your purpose. The response was weak and filled with static. This is Prince Zethka of the Kethran Empire. I carry urgent news about the Void Swarm. Must speak to human leaders before I die. The galaxy needs your help again. The ship crashed into the lunar surface in a shower of metal and fire. By the time the rescue teams reached the wreckage, Prince Zethka was dead, but his message recorder was still functioning. Admiral Sullivan listened to the final transmission with growing alarm. The Void Swarm has consumed half the galaxy, the dying prince whispered. Only human weapons can stop them. But there is something else you must know. The ones who created the machines, they remember what you did to them. They want revenge. They're coming for Earth next. The message ended in silence, leaving humanity to face a terrible choice. Stay hidden and let the galaxy burn, or return to space and risk becoming monsters again. The emergency session of the Earth Council lasted 3 days. Admiral Kate Sullivan sat at the head of the table while politicians and military leaders argued about Prince Zethka's final message. The recording device from his crashed ship sat in the center of the table like an accusation. Dr. Nina Ross had been pushing to send a response fleet, while Senator Paul Davis insisted they maintain the isolation that had kept Earth safe for 50 years. We need to understand what happened before, Kate said finally. Lisa, bring up the archive footage from the Proxima War. Lieutenant Lisa Kane activated the holographic display. The room filled with images from humanity's darkest chapter. Colonel Matt Brooks appeared on screen, standing over the ruins of Altair Prime. His face was calm as he gave orders to his troops, but his eyes held something cold and empty. The Altairans refused to surrender, Brooks explained to the camera. So we used psychological warfare protocols. We studied their brain patterns and created sounds that triggered their deepest fears. Within 6 hours, the entire population had committed suicide rather than face capture. Senator Davis shifted uncomfortably in his seat. That was necessary to end the war quickly, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. The footage changed to show Dr. Amy Foster in her laboratory. She was a small woman with kind eyes, but her work had been anything but kind. The genome cascade weapons can rewrite alien DNA in real time, she explained cheerfully. We can turn their strongest warriors into docile servants who only want to please us. It's much more humane than simply killing them. Lisa felt sick as she watched alien soldiers transformed into creatures that crawled on the ground and begged for orders from their human captors. Their eyes still held intelligence, but their bodies and minds had been twisted beyond recognition. Show them the Centauri files, Kate said quietly. The display shifted to show General Alex Turner in his command center. He was humanity's greatest military strategist, the man who had broken the Galactic Council's power and made Earth the ruler of half the galaxy. His strategy meetings were works of art, each plan more brilliant than the last. The key to defeating aliens is understanding that they think differently than we do, Turner explained to his officers. They have honor codes, loyalty patterns, and emotional responses that we can exploit. Commander Lisa Park has developed new techniques for using human empathy as a weapon. The screen showed Park standing before a group of captured alien leaders. She was young and beautiful, with a voice like honey. She spoke to them about their families, their hopes, their fears. Within hours, the strongest among them were weeping and begging to serve humanity. Their spirits had been completely broken, without a single physical blow. "We called it the empathy protocol," Park said in her recorded debrief. "Humans understand emotion better than any other species. We can read their feelings and use them against them. It's more effective than any torture." The real horror came with the Centauri crisis footage. Admiral Steve Clark stood on the bridge of his flagship as his fleet approached the Arcturus system. Below them, 40 billion aliens lived on dozens of worlds, believing they were safe behind their defensive fleets. "Deploy the stellar nullifier," Clark ordered calmly. Dr. Helen Gray appeared on a side screen, her face pale with fear. "Admiral, the weapon isn't fully tested. We don't know what the side effects might be." "Deploy it now," Clark repeated. The weapon fired and the star began to collapse. It took 6 hours for the entire system to die. 40 billion lives ended as their sun went dark and cold. The defensive fleets were caught completely off guard, their ships freezing in space as the star's death threw the system into chaos. Dr. Gray was seen crying in her laboratory afterward. "I never meant for this to happen," she sobbed to the camera. "I thought we were building a deterrent, not a genocide weapon." She destroyed all her research files that same day and spent the rest of her life trying to make amends, but the worst was yet to come. The footage from the pacification campaigns showed General Frank Collins leading what humanity called peacekeeping operations. Any alien civilization that might threaten human interests was systematically dismantled. Captain Joe Martinez commanded the 7th Fleet as they moved from system to system, leaving empty worlds behind them. "We're not conquering them," Martinez explained to his crew. "We're protecting the galaxy from future wars. These species are too aggressive to be allowed to develop advanced technology. The aliens they pacified were relocated to primitive worlds where they could barely survive. Their technology was confiscated and their leaders were either killed or broken by the empathy protocol. Entire civilizations that had existed for thousands of years vanished in a matter of months." Lisa watched in horror as the 7th Fleet destroyed the great libraries of Vega Prime. Millions of years of alien art, literature, and scientific knowledge burned while human soldiers stood guard. "We can't risk them developing dangerous ideas," Martinez said as he watched the flames. The final recording showed the event that ended humanity's galactic empire. President Nancy Webb sat in her office, listening to reports about the Vegan Alliance's terrorist attacks on human colonies. The attacks had actually been desperate attempts by the surviving vegans to rescue their people from human prison camps. "Authorized Protocol 7, Webb said without emotion. Admiral Chris Baker received the order aboard his flagship. Protocol 7 was the consciousness-scrambling weapon, something so terrible that even the military scientists who created it had begged for it never to be used. It didn't kill the target, but left them in a permanent vegetative state, their minds destroyed beyond any hope of recovery. The weapon deployed across 12 vegan worlds simultaneously. 5 billion aliens simply stopped thinking. They stood where they were, staring at nothing, their minds gone forever. Their bodies continued to live, but their souls had been erased. The recording showed Baker vomiting on his bridge after the weapon fired. "What have we done?" he whispered. "Dear God, what have we done?" The galactic response was immediate and universal. Every species, even humanity's oldest allies, turned against Earth. The quarantine was established within months. with ships from 100 different civilizations forming a blockade around the Sol system. Humanity had become too dangerous to be allowed contact with the rest of the galaxy. Dr. Nina Ross turned off the display and looked around the room. "Now you understand why they fear us," she said quietly. "We didn't just win our wars. We destroyed the very concept of resistance. We made it impossible for anyone to fight us without losing their minds, their bodies, or their souls." Senator Davis stood up slowly. "And that's exactly why we can never go back out there," he said. "Every time we try to help, we end up committing genocide. Every time we try to bring peace, we destroy entire civilizations. We're too dangerous to be trusted with power." Admiral Sullivan looked at the empty holographic display where the images of humanity's crimes had been. But what if the galaxy really is dying? What if they need us to stop this void swarm? "Then they'll have to find another way," Davis replied. "Because the price of human help has always been too high for anyone to pay." The meeting ended without a decision. Earth's leaders went back to their offices and homes, carrying the weight of their species' dark history. Outside, the stars continued to shine, but behind them lay the ruins of civilizations that had trusted humanity to protect them. Lisa Kane returned to her quarters and stared out at the night sky. Somewhere out there, the void swarm was consuming worlds while their former victims begged for help from the very monsters who had once terrorized them. The galaxy was trapped between two nightmares, and humanity was both the cause of one and the only possible solution to the other. She fell asleep wondering if some problems were simply too big to solve, and if humanity's greatest victory might be learning to do nothing at all. The first years after the quarantine were the hardest. Captain Dan Kelly commanded one of the few ships allowed to patrol the edge of human space, watching the massive alien fleet that surrounded their solar system like a prison wall. Every day, he filed reports about the ships out there, counting weapons and noting when new vessels arrived to join the blockade. "They're building something new," Kelly reported to Admiral Sullivan during his weekly briefing. "The Kethrons brought in what looks like reality disruption generators. If we try to break through the line, they can make our ship stop existing." Sullivan nodded grimly. The aliens weren't taking any chances with humanity's return to space. They had spent decades developing weapons specifically designed to counter every advantage human technology provided. Fear had made them creative in ways they had never been before. Dr. Sarah White worked in the xenopsychology department, analyzing intercepted alien communications to understand how humanity's actions had changed their former victims. Her reports made for disturbing reading. The vegans had evolved into a species that could shut down their emotions entirely when threatened. The Alterans, the few who had survived, now reproduced by creating artificial offspring with no capacity for fear or pain. "We didn't just defeat them in battle," Sarah explained to the Earth Council. "We changed their evolution." Species that survived contact with humans developed traits specifically to resist our methods. They became less than they were before, but they survived. The internal struggles on Earth were almost as painful as the external isolation. The population had divided into three main factions, each with different ideas about humanity's future. The penitents believed that humans deserved punishment for their crimes and should accept exile as justice. Their leader was former General Bobby Lee, who had commanded ground forces during the pacification campaigns. "We are monsters," Lee said during his speeches. "We proved that when given unlimited power, humans will always choose the path of greatest destruction. The galaxy is safer without us, and we should spend whatever time we have left learning to be better." The deniers took the opposite view. Senator Lucy Adams led rallies where she insisted that humanity's actions had been necessary and justified. "We brought peace to a chaotic galaxy," she argued. "Every species we fought was aggressive and dangerous. We saved countless lives by stopping their wars before they could spread." The third faction, the Rebuilders, focused on practical solutions. Engineer Tony Miller organized massive projects to improve Earth's technology and society. "We can't change what we did," he said, "but we can become the kind of species that the galaxy might someday trust again." President Kevin Wright tried to hold the factions together while managing the day-to-day business of governing an isolated world. His administration oversaw the Great Purge, the systematic destruction of every weapon of mass destruction in human space. Millions of citizens watched as the Genesis bombs were fed into solar furnaces. Their terrible power turned into harmless light, but not everyone was willing to disarm completely. Director Angela Scott ran secret facilities hidden in the asteroid belt where research continued on even more advanced weapons. She believed that humanity's exile was temporary and that they needed to be prepared for the eventual war that would come. "The aliens won't keep us trapped forever," Scott told her researchers. "When they finally attack, we need to be ready with weapons they can't possibly counter. We need to be able to win so completely that they never threaten us again." The culture of Earth changed dramatically during the long exile. Children like young Emma Price grew up never seeing an alien face except in historical records. They learned about the galaxy as if it were ancient history, not a living universe just beyond their reach. The isolation created a generation that was purely human, untainted by contact with other species, but also ignorant of what existed beyond their solar system. Artists responded to the isolation in different ways. Composer Carl Reed created symphonies that explored themes of guilt and redemption, music so beautiful and sad that listening to it became a form of prayer. His Requiem for Altair was played at memorial services for the victims of human violence. Others, like filmmaker Rita Bell, produced entertainment that justified humanity's past actions. Her movies portrayed aliens as inherently evil creatures who had forced humans to use extreme measures in self-defense. These films were popular with the deniers but banned in schools run by the penitents. The most disturbing discovery came 20 years into the exile. Captain Gary Stone was conducting a routine patrol near Jupiter when his sensors detected something hidden in the planet's atmosphere. The object was clearly artificial but used technology that no human had ever seen before. "It's been watching." U.S., Stone reported after his team analyzed the device. "This thing has been recording everything we've done for the past 2 decades. Every ship movement, every communication, every construction project on the moons." Admiral Sullivan called an emergency meeting with the Earth Council. The device was clearly alien, but it had been hidden so well that human sensors had never detected it before. Worse, when they scanned the rest of the solar system, they found dozens more of the mysterious watchers. Dr. Nina Ross examined the captured device in her laboratory. "The technology is incredible," she admitted. "They've been observing us from inside gas giant atmospheres, from the centers of asteroids, even from the sun itself. They know everything about what we've been doing." Senator Paul Davis was furious. "They don't trust us even in exile," he said. 50 years of isolation, and they still think we're planning to attack them. This proves we can never reconcile with the galaxy." The situation became critical when one of Stone's patrol ships accidentally destroyed a watcher near Jupiter. The alien device exploded with enough force to level a small city, and the blast sent automatic distress signals to every military fleet in known space. Within hours, the quarantine fleet had moved to battle stations. Admiral Sullivan watched from Earth as thousands of alien warships powered their weapons and aimed them at human space. For the first time in 50 years, war seemed possible again. The alien response came as a formal communication broadcast on all frequencies. The speaker was Chancellor Valneth of the Hegemony, a coalition of species that had formed specifically to contain humanity. His voice was cold and mechanical, processed through translation software that removed all emotion. "Humans of Earth," Valneth announced, "your destruction of our monitoring systems has been noted as an act of aggression. You have broken the terms of your exile. Prepare to face the consequences." The threat sent shockwaves through human society. The deniers demanded immediate military mobilization. The penitents called for surrender and acceptance of whatever punishment the aliens chose to inflict. The rebuilders frantically worked on diplomatic solutions that might prevent another war. President Wright found himself facing the same choice that had led to humanity's exile in the first place. He could authorize the deployment of the secret Weapons that Director Scott had been developing, weapons powerful enough to break the quarantine and scatter the alien fleets. Or he could accept that humanity was trapped forever. Prisoners in their own solar system, Admiral Sullivan stood in her office, looking at the tactical displays that showed alien ships massing at the edge of human space. The weapons were ready. Earth's hidden defense platforms could strike before the aliens knew what hit them. But using those weapons would prove that humanity had learned nothing from 50 years of isolation. Outside her window, the people of Earth went about their daily lives, unaware that their species stood on the edge of another war. Children played in parks under skies that had never seen alien ships. Lovers walked hand in hand through cities that had been built during the years of peace. Artists created beauty while scientists discovered truths about the universe that they could never share with anyone beyond their own kind. The choice was simple but terrible. Fight and prove that humans would always choose violence when cornered. Surrender and accept that their species would spend the rest of eternity as prisoners of their own past crimes. Or find some third option that no one had thought of yet. Something that might finally break the cycle of fear and violence that had trapped both humanity and the galaxy in an endless spiral of mistrust. 25 years had passed since the Watcher crisis when the first reports of the Void Swarm reached Earth through intercepted alien communications. Supreme Admiral Linda Moore sat in the Global Defense Center, listening to panicked transmissions. From across the galaxy, entire star systems were going dark, their signals simply stopping as if someone had turned off a switch. "The pattern is accelerating," reported Colonel Nick Gray, head of intelligence operations. "We're tracking approximately 50 systems per day falling silent. The swarm moves in a spiral pattern, consuming everything in its path and leaving nothing behind but empty space." The alien communications were desperate, beyond anything humanity had heard during their years of exile. Former enemies begged for human intervention with voices breaking from terror and exhaustion. The proud Arcturus Federation, which had once commanded fleets of 1,000,000 ships, now pleaded for help with their last dozen vessels. Dr. Jennifer Moore worked frantically in her laboratory, analyzing the few images of the void swarm that alien refugees had managed to transmit before their worlds died. The machines were unlike anything in recorded galactic history, silver shapes that flowed like liquid metal and reproduced by breaking down matter at the atomic level. "They're von Neumann machines," Jennifer explained to the Earth Council. "Self-replicating constructors that convert everything they encounter into more of themselves. But the design is too advanced to be a natural development. Someone built these things with a specific purpose?" The truth emerged when intelligence operatives intercepted communications from the hegemony leadership. Chancellor Velneth, the alien leader who had threatened Earth during the Watcher crisis, was revealed to be directing the Void Swarm's movements. But he wasn't controlling the machines. He had simply pointed them toward his enemies and let them consume everything in their path. "Velneth is an Arcturian," Nick Gray reported during his briefing, "one of the survivors from the Centauri crisis. His entire family died when Admiral Clark destroyed their star system. He spent the last 50 years building the hegemony and developing these machines specifically to destroy both humanity and every species that ever allied with us." The psychological profiles made disturbing reading. Velneth had been driven insane by decades of planning revenge, the loss of his world, and family had broken something fundamental in his mind, leaving him with an obsession that consumed his entire existence. He saw the Void Swarm not as a weapon but as a cleansing force that would purify the galaxy of human influence. On Earth, the political situation reached a breaking point. Speaker Mary Roberts led the intervention faction, arguing that humanity had a moral obligation to stop the genocide happening across the galaxy. "We created this monster," she said during heated debates in the global parliament. "Velneth exists because of what we did to his people. We have a responsibility to stop him." Opposition leader Peter Cook represented the isolationist position with studies and statistics that painted a grim picture of human involvement in galactic affairs. Dr. Joan Evans, had conducted extensive psychological research showing that human presence on any battlefield increased overall violence by 400%. Every time we try to help, we make the situation worse, Cook argued. Our very nature turns conflicts into bloodbaths. If we intervene against the Void Swarm, we'll end up destroying more lives than we save. The debate was complicated by reports from deep space monitoring stations. Young Captain Rob Thompson commanded the ship Liberty on patrol near the edge of the solar system when his sensors detected something unprecedented. Human technology had advanced dramatically during the years of isolation, but what his ship was carrying represented a breakthrough that could change everything. Dr. Victor Kane had spent 30 years developing weapons that could stop the Void Swarm without causing collateral damage. His quantum dissolution cannons could unmake the machines at the subatomic level, turning them back into harmless matter without affecting anything else in the area. But the weapons had never been tested, and using them would require breaking the quarantine treaty that had kept peace for 50 years. The calculations are perfect, Kane explained to Admiral Moore. The weapons will only affect artificial constructs with the specific quantum signature of the Void Swarm machines. Living beings and natural matter will be completely unaffected. But theory and practice were different things. Testing the weapons would mean crossing into alien space, an act that would immediately trigger the quarantine fleet's automated response systems. Thousands of alien ships waited beyond the solar system's edge, their computers programmed to open fire the moment any human vessel crossed the boundary. Underground, the restoration movement prepared for humanity's eventual return to galactic society. Former Admiral Grace Young had spent 20 years training diplomats and developing non-lethal technologies that could demonstrate human progress. Her followers believed that humanity had truly changed and could return to space as protectors, rather than conquerors. "We've learned from our mistakes," Grace argued during secret meetings with government officials. The new generation of humans understands the value of life and the importance of restraint. We can be the species the galaxy needs us to be. But her movement was undermined by extremist cells led by Colonel Wayne Davis, a veteran of the old wars who believed that humanity's only mistake had been showing mercy to their enemies. His followers prepared for a return to space as conquerors, planning to use advanced human technology to complete the galactic domination that had been interrupted by the quarantine. "The galaxy fears us because we're superior," Davis preached to his supporters. "When we return to space, we should do it as the masters we were always meant to be. The aliens have proven they can't govern themselves without destroying everything they touch." The crisis reached its peak when the Void Swarm finally reached the quarantine line. Admiral Patrick Green commanded the mixed alien fleet that had kept humanity imprisoned for 50 years, but his ships were designed to fight human vessels, not self-replicating machines that treated all matter as raw material. "They're not responding to our weapons," Green reported to his superiors as the first wave of machines reached his outer perimeter. "Conventional attacks just provide them with more material to convert into additional units. We need the quantum dissolution technology that only the humans possess." The alien leadership faced an impossible choice. They could lower the quarantine and ask for human help, risking the return of their greatest enemies to galactic space. Or they could fight the machines alone and watch their civilizations die slowly as the Void Swarm consumed everything they had built over millions of years. The decision was made for them when Captain Holly Mitchell of the human destroyer Redemption detected a Kethran refugee ship being pursued by Void Swarm units. The alien vessel carried 10,000 civilians, including children and elders who had fled the destruction of their homeworld. Mitchell faced the same choice that had defined humanity's relationship with the galaxy for centuries. She could follow orders and maintain the isolation that had kept Earth safe. Or she could cross the quarantine line and save innocent lives, officially ending 50 years of human exile. "All hands, prepare for combat," Mitchell announced to her. "Crew, we're going to save those refugees regardless of the consequences." The Redemption crossed the boundary at maximum speed, its quantum dissolution cannons charging as it raced toward the refugee ship. Behind it, the quarantine fleet's automated systems activated, targeting the human vessel for immediate destruction. Ahead, the Void Swarm machines turned their attention from the helpless refugees to the new threat. For the first time in 50 years, human weapons fired in anger beyond the borders of the solar system. The quantum cannons struck the machines and unmade them instantly, turning deadly constructs back into harmless atoms. The refugees were saved, but the greater war was just beginning. Admiral Sullivan watched from Earth as warning signals flooded in from across the galaxy. Humanity had officially broken its exile. The quarantine was over. The species that had once terrorized the galaxy was returning to space, carrying weapons more powerful than anything they had possessed during their darkest days. The galaxy would never be the same again. The return of humanity to galactic space created panic across 1,000 worlds. Captain Tim Jackson led the first diplomatic mission in 50 years, commanding a small fleet of human ships equipped with the latest peaceful contact protocols. But the aliens who met him remembered only the old stories of human cruelty and violence. "Stay back," warned Admiral Kresh of the Draconian Defense Force as Jackson's ships approached the neutral meeting zone. "We know what you humans are capable of. One wrong move and we'll activate every weapon we have." Jackson followed the new protocols that Grace Young's restoration movement had developed. His ships powered down all weapon systems and broadcast continuous messages of peaceful intent. But the aliens weren't impressed by gestures. They had spent 50 years preparing for humanity's return, and their fear ran deeper than any diplomatic nicety could reach. The first joint operation against the Void Swarm took place in the Rigel system, where Dr. Jennifer Moore's quantum dissolution weapons proved devastatingly effective. The machines that had consumed dozens of star systems simply ceased to exist when struck by the human cannons. But each victory sparked new rumors about humanity's return to galactic dominance. Commander Sally Price found herself in the unprecedented position of commanding a mixed human-alien fleet. Her crew included Kethran tactical officers, vegan engineers, and even a few Arcturian navigators. The cooperation was awkward and tense, with every species watching the others for signs of betrayal. "The humans fight differently than we remember," reported Lieutenant Zefka after the first battle. "Their new weapons are precise, surgical. They could have destroyed our ships as easily as the machines, but they chose to protect us instead." But not everyone was convinced that humanity had truly changed. The psychological warfare techniques that had broken entire civilizations were still fresh in alien memory. Every act of human kindness was analyzed for hidden motives. Every gesture of peace was suspected of being manipulation. The true scope of the threat emerged when hegemony forces revealed the second phase of Velneth's plan. The Arcturian prince had spent decades studying human tactics and psychology, learning to use their own techniques against them. His broadcasts to the galaxy painted humanity's return as the beginning of a new age of terror. "Do not trust their offers of help," Velneth's voice echoed across alien communication networks. "The humans are using this crisis to regain their position as galactic overlords. They created the Void Swarm to force you to beg for their assistance. Soon they will demand payment in the form of absolute submission." The lies were sophisticated and played on every fear that the galaxy harbored about humanity. Velneth's psychological manipulation turned the Liberation War into a three-way conflict that threatened to tear apart the fragile alliance against the machines. Alien fleets began firing on human ships even as they fought together against the Void Swarm. Admiral Derek Lane faced the ultimate test when intelligence reports revealed the location of Velneth's primary command facility. The installation was protected by both hegemony forces and Void Swarm machines, making it virtually impossible to assault with conventional tactics. But Director Angela Scott's secret research had produced weapons that could end the war in minutes, the Omega Protocol. Devices existed in violation of every treaty humanity had signed during their exile. The reality-warping weapons could alter the fundamental structure of space-time itself, erasing matter from existence without leaving any trace behind. They were more powerful than the Genesis bombs, more terrible than the Stellar Nullifier, more complete than any weapon humanity had ever created. "We could end this war today," Scott argued during the classified briefing. "Deploy the Omega devices and Velneth's entire operation simply stops existing. No more Void Swarm, no more hegemony, no more threat to the galaxy." But using the weapons would prove that humanity had learned nothing from 50 years of exile. The collateral damage would be enormous, affecting billions of innocent lives throughout the region. Worse, the weapons would demonstrate that humans still possessed the capacity for absolute destruction, confirming every alien fear about their return to space. The final confrontation came when Captain Brad Cohen's Special Forces team infiltrated Velneth's command ship deep in the galactic core. What they found there horrified even the veterans who had seen humanity's worst atrocities. The Arcturian prince had been kept alive through artificial means for decades beyond his natural lifespan, his body sustained by machines while his mind festered with hate and madness. "You cannot stop what I have begun," Velneth whispered through damaged vocal cords. "The Void Swarm will consume everything. Humans, aliens, all the works of intelligence in this galaxy. Only in universal death can there be true peace." Cohen realized that the prince was no longer capable of rational thought. The trauma of losing his world had broken his mind completely, leaving behind only an obsession with destruction that had grown over the decades into something approaching religious fervor. He truly believed that ending all life was the only way to prevent future suffering. The final phase of Velneth's plan was revealed when the Void Swarm suddenly changed tactics. Instead of consuming matter to create more machines, the constructs began using their accumulated mass to build something unprecedented. In the center of the galaxy, they were constructing a device that would destabilize the galactic core and trigger a chain reaction that would destroy every star system within 100,000 light years. "He's not trying to conquer the galaxy," Dr. Jennifer Moore reported with growing horror. "He's trying to end it completely. If that device activates, it will kill everything and everyone. The explosion will be visible from other galaxies." Admiral Sullivan faced the final choice that would define humanity's place in the universe. The Omega Protocol weapons could stop the galactic destruction device, but using them would brand humanity as monsters forever. Conventional tactics might work, but they would take time that the galaxy didn't have. The solution came from an unexpected source. Admiral Cindy Morris proposed something that no human leader had ever considered: voluntary sacrifice. Instead of using their most powerful weapons to achieve victory, humanity would give up their technological advantages to save a galaxy that might never trust them. "We transmit all our advanced technologies to every species in the galaxy," Morris explained. "The quantum dissolution weapons, the defensive systems, even the theoretical research. We make ourselves equals instead of superiors." The plan was implemented in the final hours before galactic destruction. Human ships throughout the galaxy began broadcasting technical specifications for every advanced weapon and defensive system they possessed. Species that had been helpless against the Void Swarm suddenly found themselves equipped with the tools they needed to fight back. The battle for the galactic core lasted 6 days. Human ships fought alongside former enemies, sharing, targeting data and coordinating attacks with species they had once terrorized. The quantum dissolution weapons, now produced by 100 different civilizations, carved through the Void Swarm like fire through paper. Captain Scott Williams commanded the final assault on Velneth's destruction device. His ship was the last human vessel to enter the battle, and it carried no weapons at all. Instead, it broadcast a message that reached every corner of the galaxy. "From the people of Earth to all intelligent life," Williams announced, "we acknowledge our crimes and accept our exile. We return to our solar system not as conquerors but as guardians. We will watch over the galaxy from a distance, ready to help if asked but never again imposing our will on others." The destruction device was neutralized by combined alien forces, using human technology. Velneth died in the explosion. His mad dream of universal death finally ended. The Void Swarm, deprived of central coordination, was systematically hunted down and destroyed by species that had once been its helpless victims. Humanity returned to their solar system as they had promised, but this time their exile was voluntary. They established monitoring stations at the edge of human space, watching over a galaxy that was slowly learning to trust them again. The weapons that had once made them masters were now shared freely with everyone, ensuring that no single species could ever again dominate the others. Lieutenant Wendy Clark worked at the primary listening post, monitoring galactic communications and watching for signs of new threats. The messages she heard were different now. Instead of fear and hatred, the galaxy spoke of humanity with cautious respect. They were remembered not as the conquerors who had terrorized the stars, but as the species that had saved everyone by choosing wisdom over power. The final message in her log read simply, "Galaxy stable. No threats detected, humanity remains. Involuntary exile, serving as guardians rather than rulers. Perhaps we have finally learned that the greatest victory is knowing when not to fight." Outside her window, the stars shone peacefully in the void, and for the first time in centuries, the galaxy was truly at peace.